Did you know that the most feared soldier in the entire Bible wasn't David or even Goliath? Few people know the story of Benaiah, the warrior whose feats are so extraordinary they almost sound like fiction. But make no mistake, this is a real story, and the secret behind Benaiah's success is something few understand, but it makes all the difference in life. While many hide in the face of challenges, Benaiah hunted them down, literally. Imagine defeating a lion in the middle of a snowy pit or facing a giant using the enemy's own weapons. Incredible, right? What's even more fascinating is that this same strength that moved Benaiah is within your reach. It's not about muscles or physical might. It's about something much deeper. And that's exactly what we're going to explore together. The answer may seem counterintuitive to many. It's not the power you possess, but how you use it and, more importantly, whom you trust. Most people go through life without ever unlocking this secret, but today you have the chance to discover something transformative. Ready to uncover what made Benaiah the most feared soldier and how you can apply that to your own life? Benaiah was one of those men whose stories in the Bible spark curiosity and admiration. Imagine facing a lion in a pit on a snowy day. That's not just bravery. It's something beyond common understanding. He didn't hesitate, didn't step back. He simply acted. When it comes to courage, Benaiah set the bar higher, turning extreme challenges into opportunities to demonstrate what it means to trust in one's own strength and faith. If you think about it, how often do we miss opportunities to act because the terrain is hostile, or the timing doesn't seem right? Benaiah's story teaches us that sometimes, it's in life's snowy pits where we find the chance to reveal our true potential. Speaking of that, there's something fascinating about the story of the Egyptian giant Benaiah faced. It wasn't enough for the opponent to be bigger, stronger, and armed to the teeth. What made the difference was strategy. Benaiah took the giant's spear and used it against him. This twist wasn't just physical. It was mental. How often do we face seemingly giant problems that can actually be solved by using the very resources the obstacle presents? The key here is perception and how we approach challenges. A clear example of how Bible stories like this transcend time and continue to teach us. Benaiah's life, full of challenges, is a true book of wisdom in action. The book of Revelation carries the same spirit of overcoming, of facing adversities with courage and confidence. But just as Benaiah didn't act on instinct alone, he knew what to lean on. His strength came from a unique combination of faith and strategy. And that's something we can apply to any area of life, whether in work, personal relationships, or even spirituality. The stories of the Bible in the Old Testament are full of moments where strategy and faith go hand in hand. Of course, facing lions isn't just literal, right? In our days, lions can be represented by everyday problems, whether they're financial, emotional, or professional. The difference lies in how we react. And here, Benaiah shows us a mental attitude. Never underestimate the strength you already possess. In fact, how often do we let fear paralyze our actions, when all we need is to change our perspective and act with the confidence of someone who has already conquered internal battles? If Benaiah's courage impresses you, now think about the importance of having the right strategy to overcome your own challenges. In the book of Revelation, we are constantly reminded that true power isn't just in the hands of the strong, but in the minds of those who know how to use the resources around them. Just as Benaiah used the giant spear, how many times can we use the tools we have to overcome what seems insurmountable? And this brings us to a crucial point: acting at the right moment. The snow and the pit weren't the best conditions to fight a lion, but that didn't stop Benaiah from going all the way. Just like in the Bible stories of the New Testament, where faith often conquers the impossible, our own lives require that kind of readiness. You might be surrounded by snow right now, but that doesn't mean your chance of victory has disappeared. Remember, the conditions will never be perfect. What matters is what you do, even when everything around you seems to say it's impossible. Now, have you ever stopped to think about how this kind of story might apply directly to your life? Just like Benaiah, we often find ourselves in challenging situations, surrounded by adverse conditions. Perhaps it's time to stop waiting for the perfect moment and act, even if it seems risky. After all, great victories come in the most improbable moments, and Bible stories are there to remind us of that. Benaiah's loyalty to King David was unquestionable, something that often makes us reflect on what it truly means to be loyal to someone or a purpose. In times of political crisis, when many around David wavered, Benaiah stood firm like a rock. His loyalty wasn't limited to the battlefield but went beyond. He saw the bigger picture, the divine purpose at stake. Now, think about the times when we are challenged to be loyal in our own lives, whether to a cause, a job, or even to our own values. Benaiah's loyalty reminds us that true commitment endures the toughest tests. During Adonijah's attempted coup, Benaiah could have chosen a different path. Many did, but he didn't waver. This shows us that loyalty isn't something that shifts with circumstances, but is a conscious choice based on trust. It's like in the Old Testament Bible stories, where we see characters standing firm amidst uncertainty, trusting in God's plan. Benaiah understood that his support for David wasn't just a matter of political loyalty, but a reflection of his faith in something greater. How often are we placed in situations where we need to choose between what's convenient and what's right? Benaiah's role in Solomon's rise to the throne is a clear example of how loyalty bears fruit. His presence beside David was crucial to ensuring a smooth and just transition of power. This leads us to think about how, in our lives, loyalty can impact the building of something bigger. It's not just about being faithful in calm moments, but about standing firm during the most turbulent times. In the Bible, stories like this show us that true loyalty is a force that transcends immediate circumstances. It lays solid foundations for the future. Now, bringing this into our reality, how often are we tested in our loyalty? Whether at work, in friendships, or relationships, there's always that moment when following the easier path seems tempting. But if we learn anything from Bible stories like this, it's that constant and firm loyalty is one of the greatest virtues we can develop. And the most interesting thing is that this loyalty doesn't need to be blind but grounded in faith, in the trust that we are doing what's right, even when the road seems uncertain. Speaking of that, we can even apply this in the professional environment. How many times does a project or goal seem to be falling apart, and loyalty to the mission or the team is what keeps us on track? Just as Benaiah didn't abandon David in difficulties, we are also challenged not to give up when the situation gets complicated. It's like in the New Testament Bible stories, where faith and loyalty come together to overcome the greatest challenges. Benaiah understood that loyalty wasn't just about obedience, but about being aligned with something bigger. And that loyalty had rewards, of course, but not those that come immediately. His dedication to David resulted in a peaceful transition and Solomon's rise to the throne, a change that would shape Israel's future. Benaiah's loyalty is a powerful example of how faithfulness to the right purpose can have a lasting impact. Imagine if we applied this concept to our own projects, whether in work, personal goals, or even in our faith. It's not just about what we gain in the immediate moment, but about what we build for the long term. Loyalty, then, is more than a virtue. It's a daily choice. And just as Benaiah made this choice even in the midst of political chaos, we too are challenged to choose where we place our loyalty. If you find yourself in a situation where your faithfulness is being tested, remember the Bible stories, especially Benaiah's unwavering loyalty to David. It's in the difficult moments that we prove our true character, and it's in those moments that we reap the greatest rewards. When we think of Benaiah, the first thing that comes to mind is his physical strength, his war skills, and his unparalleled courage. But what might not be so evident at first glance is that the true source of his strength wasn't in his muscles, but in his faith. It wasn't just his ability to wield a sword or defeat giants that made him invincible, but his unwavering belief that he wasn't alone. It's interesting how Bible stories always remind us of this. True strength comes from within, from a faith that keeps us standing even when the world around us crumbles. When facing seemingly impossible challenges, Benaiah knew that his physical strength was limited, but his faith in God was limitless. This is something we can apply directly to our lives. How many times do we encounter obstacles that seem insurmountable? Often, we think we don't have the resources to overcome them, but that's exactly where faith comes in. Old Testament Bible stories like Benaiah's show us that when we place our trust in something greater, we can face any challenge, no matter how impossible it seems. And don't think this is just something theoretical or distant. How many times, in everyday life, do we feel weak, insecure, unable to move forward? Maybe it's at work, where a goal seems unattainable, or in relationships, where difficulties seem insurmountable. Benaiah teaches us that it's faith that gives us the strength to continue. In practice, this could mean setting aside time to nurture that faith, whether through inspiring readings like the Book of Revelation or even dedicating time to prayer and meditation. The important thing is to understand that our strength doesn't come just from us but from what we believe in. Benaiah knew that without faith, he was just another warrior. The difference was that he believed there was a greater purpose in his life, a mission given by God. This is a lesson worth gold. When we find our purpose, our strength multiplies. Just like in the New Testament Bible stories, where we see Jesus empowering his followers, Benaiah's faith empowered him to accomplish extraordinary feats. And we, in our own journey, can find this same strength by discovering and aligning ourselves with the greater purpose God has for us. Faith, however, isn't just about believing in something abstract. It manifests in concrete actions. Just like in Benaiah's life. He didn't just believe, he acted. When he faced the lion in the snowy pit or the Egyptian giant, he knew that physical strength was important, but it was his trust in God that really moved him. Think about how this could apply to you. Faith isn't passive. It's active. When you act, knowing that something greater is supporting you, your actions take on a new dimension. It's as if every move is backed by an invisible but powerful force. Another interesting point is that in Bible stories, faith is never about winning all the external battles, but about winning the internal ones. Benaiah knew this. He understood that his greatest victory wasn't defeating physical enemies, but keeping his faith intact in the face of adversity. And this is something we can all learn. Sometimes the biggest battle we face isn't on the outside, but inside ourselves. It's our doubts, our fears, and our insecurities. When we look at Benaiah, we see that his strength didn't come from the absence of fear, but from the presence of faith. Finally, Benaiah shows us that true strength comes from a combination of faith and action. He didn't just wait for things to happen. He acted with courage, but always with the confidence that God was by his side. And that's something we can apply in our daily lives. It's not just about having faith, but about acting on that faith, believing that every step we take is aligned with a greater purpose. And just like in Bible stories, where we see characters overcoming obstacles with God's help, we too are called to act with faith, trusting that even when the road seems difficult, we are not alone. The life of Benaiah is truly a treasure trove of lessons that apply perfectly to our modern world. His courage, loyalty, and faith are values that, when fully understood, can completely transform the way we live. When we look at Bible stories like Benaiah's, we are reminded that courage is not the absence of fear but the ability to act in spite of it. Today, we face our own lions, whether they are challenges at work, personal struggles, or internal obstacles. Benaiah shows us that, regardless of the circumstances, we can face any situation head-on, trusting that we have the strength necessary to overcome. And what about his loyalty? In a world where trust is becoming increasingly rare, Benaiah stands out as a clear example of unwavering loyalty. He didn't just serve King David, he did so with integrity, even during times of great political turmoil. This is a direct lesson for us. How often are we tested in our loyalty, whether at work, in our personal relationships, or in our own convictions? The stories of the Bible in the Old Testament are filled with examples like Benaiah's, showing us that true loyalty is that which remains firm, even when everything around seems uncertain. Benaiah's faith is another point we cannot overlook. He knew that his strength came from God, and this gave him the confidence to face the greatest challenges of his life. This lesson is especially important today, when we are constantly bombarded by uncertainties and doubts. The stories of the Bible in the New Testament also teach us this. Faith is the foundation that sustains us when everything around us is falling apart. Benaiah reminds us that faith is not just about believing in something. It's about living according to that belief, facing challenges with the assurance that we are not alone. And the matter of strategy, Benaiah was a skilled strategist, and this is also an important lesson for us. He didn't just rely on his physical strength. He used his mind to win. By defeating the Egyptian giant with his own spear, he shows us that, many times, the solution to our problems lies in how we think about them. In our daily lives, whether at work or in personal challenges, strategy can be the decisive factor. Just as Benaiah used his enemy's spear against him, we can use adversities to our advantage, turning difficulties into opportunities. Now, if there's something that Benaiah teaches us that is crucial for today, it's the importance of being prepared. He didn't know when he would face the lion or the giant, but he was always ready. In today's world, this translates to being prepared for the challenges life throws our way. This might mean developing skills, seeking knowledge, or even strengthening our faith. The Bible stories are clear. Those who are prepared are the ones who prevail. And just as Benaiah was ready for any battle, we too are called to prepare ourselves, both physically and spiritually, for the challenges ahead. But, above all, the greatest lesson Benaiah leaves us is that we should never underestimate the power of faith and action combined. He didn't just believe, he acted. This is a clear message for us. Faith without action is barren. We can learn much from the Bible stories, but, like Benaiah, we need to apply these lessons to our daily lives. True strength doesn't come from just believing but from acting on our beliefs. When we combine faith with action, we become capable of facing any challenge that comes our way. Thus, the lessons Benaiah leaves us are clear. Courage, loyalty, faith, strategy, and preparation are the pillars of a victorious life. These are timeless values that transcend the stories of the Bible and reach us today, offering a path to live with purpose and strength. What's even more interesting is that these lessons are not just theoretical, they are incredibly practical. If we follow Benaiah's example, we can not only transform our own lives but also the world around us. Now that you know the secret behind Benaiah's strength, what's stopping you from applying these principles in your own life? True courage comes from taking action, even when the path seems impossible. The loyalty, faith, strategy, and preparation that Benaiah demonstrated aren't just stories from the Bible. They are lessons for today, for you. Think about it. What battle are you facing right now that could be won with a simple shift in perspective? What's keeping you from using the tools around you to turn challenges into victories? If Benaiah could face lions and giants, what's holding you back from confronting the giants in front of you today? The real question is, are you ready to act with the same courage? If you could apply just one of these lessons, how would your life change? And more importantly, are you ready to take the next step? Benaiah didn't wait for the perfect moment. He acted. And you? Will you wait? Or will you start now? If you want to continue learning more about the stories of the Bible and how they can transform your life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Together, we can explore more of these timeless lessons and discover how to use them to overcome today's challenges. Don't miss the opportunity to grow and prepare for the battles that lie ahead.